Music of the medieval period. What you should know. Medieval period is also called Middle Ages, referring between the fall of Roman Empire and the age reawakening and discovery. Music is based upon a religious subject. Choirs expressed faith through beautiful melodies. By the 13th century, magnificent works of architecture, sculpture, painting, music, and poetry appeared. Many kinds of music were created during these Middle Ages. Music for the knights, for the nobles in the castle, chants for the priests. Only the church music were preserved. Later on, they devised a system to notate and copy music. Church music spread and taught to succeeding generations. Vocal music, Gregorian chant. Official music of the Roman and Catholic Church, named after Pope Gregory I. It is also named as plain song or plain chant. Set to sacred Latin text, it is monophonic. It does not have harmony nor counterpoint. Sung without any accompaniment, male voices sing in unison. Originally, it was a chant passed along by oral tradition, but later on they were notated. They used the neume notation. The Gregorian neume is written on a 4-line staff. Text settings. Syllabic. There is one assigned note for each syllable of text. Neumatic. A group of neumes is assigned to one syllable of text. Melismatic. There is many notes assigned to one syllable of text, usually combining different groups of neumes. Psalmodic. Are many syllables to one note or text. Church modes. Scale used in both secular and sacred music. They composed of 7 different tones and an 8th note that duplicates the first note an octave higher. There are 8 church modes. Authentic and plagal. A. Authentic modes. Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian. B. Plagal modes. Hypodorian, Hypophrygian, Hypolydian, and Hypomysolydian. Development of melody. Monophonic in texture but transferred into one or more parts accompanying the original chant. Guillaume de Machaut, French poet and composer, first to write a polyphonic setting of the Mass Ordinary. He used the Ars Nova technique of isorhythm. Organum, an early church polyphony, consists of a Gregorian chant and one or more musical lines above the chant. The soloist sings the original chant melody while the choir sings the other parts in parallel motion. Motet. One new voice above the plain chant, making 3 or 4 voices compositions. Most important form of polyphonic music. Derives from the French word mot, referring to the words that were added to the vocal lines. Mass. Roman Catholic Church's central and leading worship service. Kyrie, Gloria, Credo, Sanctus, and Agnus Dei. Western classical art traditions. Prehistoric art is classified into 3 periods such as Paleolithic, also known as Old Stone Age, Mesolithic, also known as Middle Stone Age, and Neolithic, also known as New Stone Age eras. Egyptian civilization was one of the early civilizations that have greatly contributed in the development of art, religious, science, and technology of the world. Egyptian art is primarily religious in nature. Ancient Greek art depicts naturalism. They portray human forms in a realistic and anatomically correct manner. Their art has a conservative form with a very complex detail. Roman art developed as new source of artistic creativity, much more progressive than the conservative Greek art. The diversity of its form and its variety inspired the modern attitude of art. Byzantine art was purposely made to glorify the Christian religion and to express its mystery. It filled with spiritual symbolism, illustrates a love of splendor. It was a combination of Eastern and classical Western art. Roman skew art was characterized by its vigorous style in painting and sculpture, lavishly decorated manuscripts, and retained many basic features of Roman architectural styles. It was also greatly influenced by Byzantine art with a highly innovative and coherent style. The basic characteristics of Gothic art style reinforce symbolic meanings the church symbolized. The transcendence of the soul and underlying philosophy is to create buildings of height and light. Paintings. Paintings from his prehistoric era. Their paintings were found inside the caves, which may have been their way of communicating with each other. It may also be for religious or ceremonial purposes. These paintings may be more an artifact of the archaeological evidence than a true picture of humans' first created art. And that is all for the Western classical art traditions. And now let's move on to our next component, which is health. Community health. Let's define. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease or infirmity. It leads to a socially and economically productive life. While community is defined as a sociological group in a large place sharing one environment, it therefore includes the individual and the family. Community versus environment. Community health is defined as the art and science of maintaining, protecting, and improving the health of all the members of the community through organized and sustained community efforts. While environmental health compromises those aspects of human health that are determined by physical, chemical, biological, social, and psychosocial factors in the surrounding environment. Characteristics of a healthy community. 1. A clean and safe physical environment. 2. An environment that meets everyone's basic needs. 3. An environment that promotes social harmony and actively involves everyone. 4. An understanding of local health and environmental issues. 5. A community that participates in identifying local solutions to local problems. 6. A community whose members have access to varied experience, means of interaction and communication. 7. Accessible and appropriate health services and facilities. 8. The promotion and celebration of historical and cultural heritage. 9. A diverse and innovative economy. And 10. A sustainable use of available resources for all. And that is all for our health. And now let's move on to our last component, which is physical education. Basic first aid. First aid is an immediate and temporary care given to a person who has been injured or suddenly taken ill. It includes self-help and home care if medical assistance is not available or delayed. Objectives of first aid: to alleviate suffering, to prevent added or further injuries or danger, to prolong life. Here are some common injuries encountered by officiating officials and athletes. Sprains. A sprain is caused by torn fibers in a ligament. Swelling and bruising are some signs and symptoms. First aid: remove any clothing or jewelry around the joint. Apply cold compress at once. Elevate the affected joint. The victim's physician may recommend over-the-counter anti-inflammatory medication, aspirin and ibuprofen, appropriate for the victim's general health. Heat exhaustion. Heat exhaustion is a response to heat characterized by fatigue, weakness, and collapse due to inadequate intake of water. To compensate for loss of fluids during sweating. First aid: have the victim lie down with his or her feet elevated. Keep the victim cool. Give him or her electrolyte beverage to sip or make a salted drink. Monitor the victim for signs of shock. If the victim starts having seizure, protect him or her from injury and give her first aid for convulsion. If the victim loses consciousness, give first aid for unconsciousness. And that is all for Mapeh Week 2. Thank you.